Hello everyone, welcome back to the first video of Frontend Developer Mentorship Program for Batch 2. So in this video, we are going to learn about the fundamental of ReactJS. We will learn about the component, prop, JSX and state of ReactJS. We are also going to build a simple mini project and I will give you some quiz questions that you can answer in the comment. So let's get started. To set up your environment, we are going to use codesandbox.io. Here you can just go and sign in using your Google or a GitHub account. You click on GitHub account and you will just sign out. So why we are using Code Sandbox? The reason is that you can easily share your code to the WhatsApp community where we can easily figure out what's went wrong in your code and help you in your code. So now once you sign up, you can use the free sandbox. So you click on the new sandbox and we will have so many templates. So we will start the simple React. So if you click on this, your React setup is ready. Now let's understand. So don't overwhelm by this. So we have a public folder and we have the source folder and we have this package.json file. So in package.json file, you have all the packages that you are going to use. In the public, we have an index.html file. So React.js is basically used for a single page application where basically React.js is used for building and creating a user interfaces. So React.js is a JavaScript library that used for user based interface. So now let's go to the source. In the source, you can find all the CSS and the JavaScript file will be in the source folder and a single HTML file. We will have only single HTML file that will be in the public folder. Now everything will be rendered in this root item. So now let's understand with the help of this app.js. So you see this is our output. So what you can do, press Ctrl plus D and the old file will be not next to you. Now this is the component that is visible to you. So you can see the output is hello sandbox start string to see some magic. Now what is this? So basically in React.js everything is component. Now let's understand what is component in React.js. So as we go to YouTube video, so if you see this YouTube website, you can find this is our complete UI, how it's look like. But if we have to create this UI, it will take a lot of effort. So what we do generally is we break this UI into multiple components. So you can see this is our header, this is our banner of the home page, and then we can say this is our header. Inside the header, you can further break down into these profiles, profile info, some buttons, some nav links, and then if we scroll down, so we can further break down our UI into multiple videos, and these multiple videos can also break down into the simple single video, and the single video can further break down to the page, this image, the title, the views, and once we create a single component with image, title and views and this information, we can reuse that component for creating this complete UI. So this is how React.js use uh, components to reuse it and make a smaller component and build the complete UI through those components. So component is a simple regular JavaScript function which is customizable and we can reuse in our code to building user interfaces. There are two types of component in React.js. So we have a functional component and class component. So now let's understand about each of them. So as you can see here, we have this is known as functional component. So in the functional component, we start with a function. So how to define the functional component? It is very easy. So for now, let me just grab it and write it here. I will let you know what it is. Just first of all, let's understand about the functional component. So as you can see, functional component are defined with the name function and then we write the name of the function, let's say greeting, and After that, we have to write, I can say, this is our function component. As of now, we have just declared the function component. Now to make it a real function component, we have to return something from this. So let's say I'm returning hello world. So this is our component that we can use in our app. So I hope you understand about the functional component. Now what is class component? So class component we used class component earlier in 2012 to 2022, but now class components are the history. Nobody use class component, but just for the sake of knowledge, let's understand how to create class component. As in the React 18, in the current documentation of React.dev, they don't even mention about the class component. So we have to write class forest extends component. And now what is this component? This component should be exported from our React library. So we will say component from React. Now you see this is the class component. If I have to write same way, so let me just write same way. So you can see this is not happen. So that should be under your render method. So render is the method where we have to put the same. So now if I compare this greeting, let's just commit it and use this greeting. So how to use this component into our parent component? We simply write greeting, and you can see that this greeting is not defined. The reason behind that, because we have to write it greeting. Okay, so now you can see this greeting is rendered in this component, in the app component. So I hope now you are able to understand what is class component and what is the function component. So now let's understand about this export. This is mentioned here. So let me just comment it down for right now and understand about this export and default. So if I press Ctrl and P, then you can see we have index.js. So this is the entry point of our React. So here you can see we are importing React DOM and creating the root, and this root is, you can see, the element is the ID that is provided to this. So what we are doing is we are dynamically added all the content in this. So now let's go and go to our apps.js in the index.js. So you can clearly see what we are doing is we are importing our app from this. For importing, first we have to do is we have to export it. So there are different ways to export. So let's understand about that. So second thing we are going to understand is name and default. So first of all, let me just make all the comments below our code. So this is for your reference so that you can just refer it as a note. Okay. So now let's remove this. Okay. So now let's understand about the name and default import and export. So if you see, let me just comment it down. This also. So right now, for using this functional component into our index, we have to first import it. So we have imported. Now for import, we have to export from this. So if I comment down this line, you can find there is an error, and let's read out this error. That you likely to forget your components to the file it is defined in, or you have mixed default and name export. Now let's understand default and name export. So first of all, you can write this is default. So when you have default app, now you can use anything here. So rather than using app, I can say let's say greeting, or something name as um, first project, first component. So if I copy it and I can paste it, so now you can see, you can find the output because we have export it default way. Now if I export it using named. So how to export it using name? So for that we simply write export. So this is known as name export. You can't change the name. So here you can't use this first name. If you use this first component, then it will say you likely is to export your component or you have mixed. So what is this mixed up means? You have export as a named, but you are importing as a default. Or and then the curly braces, inside that curly braces we have to write the exact name. So what was the name? The name was F. So if we write here different name, then it will not work here. So we have to write the exact name. So now you can see it is again showing. So I hope you are able to understand what is name, what is default export. So if that clears to you, the first question is write a difference between the name and the default import and export. Write the difference in the comment section. Now let's again press Control plus B, and then we will understand what is this in detail. So let's understand this in detail. So let's uncomment it. So here as you can see this greeting. So how to use this greeting? I have already showed to you. You have to write greeting and this. So what is this? As I mentioned that greeting is this is a component, and component are regular JavaScript function, but there is a difference between a component and regular JavaScript function. The difference is that in the regular JavaScript function you can start the name by small lowercase as well, but here you can't use this lowercase. If you use this lowercase, let me just skip this two line. Let's just skip this one line. Okay, so now you can see this greeting is not printing. This greeting is not printing. So if I just open my console, it say the tag greeting is unrecognized in this browser. If you mean to render a React component, so start with the uppercase letter. That means if I want to show this greeting component, so I have to make it uppercase component. Uppercase start yeah. So this is the difference between your regular JavaScript function and the React component. So write down the, so it's time for the simple quiz. What is the difference? Just write down your answer in the comment section so that you can understand it in the better way. I hope you are able to understand the function and the class component, name and default import and export, and how to declare components. So now let's understand what is this. So at the first glance, it's look like it is a simple HTML, but no, it is not an HTML. You can find the difference. Like this greeting tag is not in the HTML. This class name is not in the HTML. We use class for CSS classes. So now what is this? So this is known as JSX, which is a syntax extension for JavaScript, which help us to, this is a syntax extension for JavaScript, which help us to write HTML markup language in the JavaScript itself. So this is the HTML markup language which is written in the JavaScript, and it is known as JSX. So what is JSX? So now let's understand there are a few differences, the way of writing HTML and the way of writing JSX. So in the JavaScript, in the JSX, you can't write it class. The reason behind that is class is the reserved keyword. Class is the reserved keyword for class component. So here you can see this is the reserved keyword. For that we use here class name. Now we can understand that JSX is known as your HTML plus JavaScript. So you can write HTML also, you can write JavaScript also. So how to write JavaScript is, let's understand. So if you write this curly braces, so the opening of this curly braces open the JavaScript world into our this markup language. So if I write 2, so you can see this 2 is nothing else but simple JavaScript. So if I write 2 plus 2, so it will calculate the 2 plus 2 and it is 4. So it will show 4 here. So now here if let's say if I want to write let name is equals to, and I can show my name here. So this is how you use JavaScript. We can write HTML, we can write simple JavaScript as well. So now it's time to learn about props. So what is props? So props are the properties of that component and that are used to pass the data from parent components to child component. Okay, so now let's understand what is parent component and child component. So here you can see, if I remove this line, so here you can see this app is the parent component, and inside that app you have another component named greeting. So this greeting is inside this app. That means that app is a parent component of greeting and greeting is a child component of parent. Okay, so let's remove this as well. Now let's understand, rather than greeting I want to say hello Vishal. So for that what I can do is, here I can write my name and here I can pass that name. Now I have to pass that data from here, so I can say name and here I am passing my name as Vishal. So here you can see I can print my name. So as this component are reusable, so now if I want to make it to another thing, so you see with the simple name of prop we can change the complete. So now as I have shown in the YouTube video, you just have to update the URL, title and the views and your component is ready. So I hope you understand about the props. Now let's understand about few more things. So what is this? Let's say I want to say different thing. Let's say greeting. So here I want to say morning and here I want to say my greeting as good afternoon. So I would say afternoon. So here we have a two props. So how to say that? Name then greeting. Now don't forget about this. So we also have here this curly braces. After this opening braces we have curly braces. In other programming languages you see we used to directly write or we usually directly write our parameters something like that, but here we don't do it in that way, and the reason behind that is if we have to in that way we have only single parameter, for that we use prop, and here you can write props dot name and here you can write props dot greeting. So if you see now, so hello morning, or we can skip that with good. So good morning Vishal, good afternoon ReactJS. So this is how we used to pass. But if we have to skip that props dot, so we can destructuring. So this is now inside this we have a object. So this is a simple object and we are doing object destructuring. So here we are saying we have two elements in that object, name and greeting. Now what we have to do, we can skip this props dot and we can skip that also. So see, you can find the same way. So this is what prop it is. Now let's say we don't have a default value. In that what we can do, we can provide that default value as well. Let's say morning is our default value. So if I skip that, if I don't pass any greeting prop, so in that case you see we will have good morning Vishal. Okay, so let's remove from this as well. So if I don't pass this, so good morning. So if it will check if greeting is passed from this component or not. If not, then it will use this value. I hope you understand about the prop. So it's the times to create our first project, and the project is a counter in ReactJS. So let's create the counter project. So first of all, let's remove everything and we will start from basic. Start everything from scratch. So I will say function, and let's say our name is function name is counter, and then this is the simple definition of our JavaScript function. Now we have to write export, and after export I am saying default, and the function name it's counter. Now you see there is some error of name export, So what we have to do is we have to go to our index, and now I will say I will change this to the default. For default I will say counter, and here I will say counter. So now it's working fine. Let's go to your app and make it working. So now it's time to write here. So what I'm gonna do, basically we have also created this function using vanilla JavaScript in our essential course. Now it's time to use our React knowledge, whatever we have learned. So we will write count, and for that we have to create some function, some prop or some variable. Now you can see this 0 is visible to you. Now what I want to do is I need a 3 buttons. So let's get a first button, and that will be an increment button. And similarly we will get a second button, that will be a decrement button. So this is the increment button and this is the decrement button, and let's see that in the next line. So I can say something like that. So you can see, let me write it in the h1 so that you can clearly see that. Okay, so we have a two button, increment and decrement, and one count. Now what we want to do, we want to, if I click on this increment button, so this count should be increment, and if I count on decrement, this count should be decrement. It's very simple. Okay, so we have done. So how to do that? It's very simple. This is known as we can write an on click event. So we have so many events like on click, on submit, on mouse over, and on key press. So we have so many events. So what we have to write, we have to write on click, and then we have to write this. So as you can see, as we open this braces, now we have to write here JavaScript. So let's start with a simple JavaScript. Let's say handle increment. So this is our function handle increment, and now I am creating my function. How to create function? It is very simple. We are creating our arrow function handle increment, and in that function I am saying console.log increment, do increment the count. Okay, and similarly we will write our another function handle decrement, and here I will say, and here I will say decrement the count. So similarly just copy and paste it here and just write. So now if I open my console, you can easily find, let me just remove all this error. So let's make it something like that, and let me just remove. Now if I click on this increment button, you see do increment the count, the function is working perfectly fine. And if I click on decrement, this is decrement, and on increment it is increment. But our count is actually not increment. Why? So for that what we have to do, we have to update our count plus plus, this means count plus 1. So this is exactly equals to count plus 1, and in the decrement we have to round, count is equals to count minus 1. Let's now I think it should work. Now let's see if it's working or not. So if I click on increment, nothing happened. If I click on decrement, nothing happened. So let's see one thing. Let's just console log it. Why it's not working? I think it should work, but I don't know. Like whatever knowledge we have, and in the similar way we build in the vanilla JavaScript. So why it's not working here? Let's click on increment. You can see on increment it is doing 1 2 3 4, and on decrement it's decrement the count, but it's not updating here. Why it's so? Because props are the read only property. So props are the reads only. So basically props are used for read only, and they are used only to pass our data from parents to child component. If we have to change the data, if we have to add user interactivity, we have to handle events. For that we have to use states of ReactJS. Now what is state? We haven't heard about that. So states are the data, or we can say React object, which used to handle this user interactivity. So how to use that? So first of all, we have to import the use state from React. Now we have to use this. Yeah, we have to change this count to something like const, and then we can say count is equals to use state. Now we can remove this count because that count was props. Now in the use state there is one parameter, and that is the initial value. So we are going to write initial value here 0. So now let me just clear the console so that I can see what this count return. Well, now let's console.log count. So you can see this count return an array. The first is your 0, that is the value that I am passing here. If I pass 1, so it will be 1, and then some function. So what is this? So this is an array. Let me just destructure it. So this is known as array destructuring. So there is some value, your initial value, and then we have some setter function. Okay. So we don't know about counts, that's why it's showing some error. Let's ignore it for a while. So this value is 0 and value is 1, and set a function is something else. So let me just console value and set a function for you. So let's see, the value is 1 and set a function is this. So now understand about the nomenclature. In the nomenclature, what we do is we write its count and we write it set, and what is the our value of like state value. So state value is count, so we will write count and set count. So for now let's keep that and see. So it is 0. So now let me put it 0. Let me clear the console and let me explain everything a little bit slow. Okay. So you see this is count, and if I click on increment, you see assignments to constant variable. That means now as it is const, we can't update it. Let's make it flat and let's see. Now can we update? Now you can see state is updating. State is updating, but now also it is not update our value in this component. Why so? The reason behind that, we can't update directly our states. For that we have to use that count function. So here what we have to do, we have to write set count, and we have to write here the updated value. So updated value will be count plus 1. Similarly, I can skip that. Now I can skip that as well. And here I have to write set count, the count minus 1. So now it's time to check is it working or not. So let's click increment. Haha, yeah. So hooray, this worked, and click decrement and it's working perfectly fine. So congratulations, you have created your first mini project in ReactJS. So in this video, we learn about the component, JSX, props, and states. So a very quick questions to you. So just tell me the difference between the state and the prop. So okay, I have skipped like I forget the rest comment. I will edit by myself. So now the next question is difference between props and state. Even though you can find the comment of other student, I highly recommend everyone to comment down and write this, because once you write the difference and once you write everything, every question that I have written, you will able to recall this in a better way. So find the difference between the props. So just as a hint, props are the read only, state can be changed, props are passed to one component to another component, and you can write this difference. Okay. So now it's time to some assignment. Okay, as I have already mentioned, whatever we learn, we are going to implement it. So now it's time you have to write another function known as reset. So what you have to do on handle, you have to write reset, handle reset, and here you have to create a function known as const handle reset. So let's do one thing. You have to do this by yourself. I'm not doing it because if you do this, so you are able to understand how to add an event, how to create the function. So what you have to do is, now the second thing, once you complete this assignment, you have to update the Google Sheet. All registered students have the access of Google Sheet, and you have to share the link. Now if you click on this there, you can say only can view and copy link, and you have to paste this link in the Google Sheet so that I can review all of your answers and the code. And if you have any problem, you can send this link in the WhatsApp community as well. So I hope this helpful for you. Now, so basically what you have to do is, let me just create a simple div, and here I'm saying tell me factor by which increment and decrement should happen should happen. Okay, and let's create an input for that. So this is not a type text, I need some number, and now I have to give some value for that. So what will be the value? For the value, I have to create another state. So let's create the state, that factor and set factor, and that will be like use state 1, because as of now you see, if you click on increment it become count plus 1, and if you click on decrement it will become count minus 1. So our factor right now is 1. Now what I want to do, I am at play value I am placing vector. Now you see currently if I click on this increment, it's increment by 1, decrement by 0. Reset, you have to create that. You know. Now what I want to do is on change. So on change is another event. So when we change the value of, when we write an input, that is mentioned by handled by the on change event. So I want to say like on change, e is the event. So now let me do one thing. Let me just make it more beautiful. So this is how you have to write code. Make on change, yeah. So here what I want to do, I want to update my factor. So how to update? So let me write e is the event, and e dot target means that input, and dot value will give me the value. So here if I just remove all this state, and let me just console it, console.log my factor. So you can see this is 1. Okay, so let me just write, um, let me just change this to 2, 3. So you see, this is the number and this is the string. Okay, let me just clarify. So you see, this is a string. So if I do 0 plus 1, so it will not work right now. Let me just show you to you. So let's just make it 2. Okay, and what we have to do, we have to change our plus 1 to factor time and minus 1 to factor time. So if I do this and let's increment it, you see, it's instead of adding those number, it is concatenate this string. So what we have to do, we have to change this string to what you known as number. So how we can do, we can use parse int, and this what it will do, it will convert our string to a number. So now if you see, if I change my numbers to 3 and make increment, again it's doing in this way. So what we have to do is okay, so rather than passing it here, we have to write it here. So pass int, and let me put my, okay, so here if you see, let me just reload it, and just make it increment. You see it's updating like working fine, and make it 4, increment, again it's working fine. But as you see, as I just back it, so it's a nan. So how to fix this? So rather than first of all taking as a string then convert it into a number, we can directly use take it as a number. How to do that? We can say as number. Now we don't need this value. Okay, so it will handle it by itself. So now we don't need that as well. Just make it simple. So e dot target that. So let me just skip this. Okay, so this is what it is. So let me just do this. So now if I make it right now if I make it nothing, so let's increment, it's a none. So this is simply handle because or one thing I can do is that one thing that I can do that let me just make another function, um, const handle update factor. Okay, and here I can say if factor equals if factor, then update your factors to set factor to factor um, e dot target dot value as number. Okay, something like that. What I can say, that give me some props. Okay, like a input factor input factor. Okay, so I can say if input factor is there, then you have to update with that input factor. Otherwise else you have to set factor 1. So what will happen if our input factor is none? Okay, then it will make it simple for us. So I will say handle update factor, and let's see how it's working right now. You see it's worked perfectly fine here. It's worked perfectly fine. Now if I just make it 0, and I can't make it. Okay, I can't make it. If I'm trying to back, I can't make it from 1. I can make it this. I can't make it from less than 1 as well. So this is how you can handle your condition, and this input factor is nothing but e as a value as number. So I hope you understand about this component, prop, react, states, and functional components. So if that helps you, just one quiz question is, just write a difference between the props and the state in the comment. So, and one more thing, whatever the question I have mentioned in the video, write down the answer in the comment. Even if you know, even if you feel like you know this, write down, because once you write, it will you are able to understand things better and read the other comment as well. If they are writing some wrong answer, do correct them. So, and also write the simple task. And if you are, one more task is task number 3 is that you have to design it. Do design this because nobody like this project. Okay, so design this mini project, and I will see you in the next video.